And I'm live. And not only am I am live with Daniel Fisk Bennett, otherwise known as the Pseudoscience guy. Daniel, how are you doing today?
It is very morning. Coffee is downloading.
because you're out on the West Coast, so we're a few time zones away from each other.
Oh yeah, yeah. I am in the most northwestern part of the contiguous United States. So,
so that's where you are, and there you go.
Yeah. So it's I mean, I'm glad it's not dark outside. Other shows that I've been on, it'll still be dark outside when we start.
Oh yeah. That's I could see how that would be difficult.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's nice having that window there because it reminds me of what time it is.
That's good.
for my little office that I have here.
I have to ask you, what does your T-shirt say?
It says psychology major. Of course, I talk to myself. Sometimes I need expert advice.
Oh, hey, I like that. That's very clever.
Yeah, my sarcasm is showing.
Right. So, atheists against pseudoscientific nonsense. Sounds like a bold organization, sir.
Yeah, started that in January of 2015. I noticed at that time on social media there were a lot of atheist groups and a lot of skeptic groups, but nothing in the center. And one of the things that I had quickly learned, once I started really getting involved with Facebook, was there were a lot of atheists that believed in a lot of unfounded things. And so logically, I just brought the two together and created that group, and it just blew up. People really started to dig in and engage,
right?
Which was fantastic. And we made then a one of those Facebook pages,
right?
And we started getting more and more people who wanted to be involved, and it just took on a life of its own. And we continue to work on our credibility, which was number one amongst everything. And anytime we had something wrong, we would immediately say, "Hey, we were wrong. This is the correct answer," according to the best information we were able to find.
Sure.
And from there, now we have 110,000 subscribers, and the group has 26,700 and some change people. Last I checked.
Sure.
And then that spiraled off a whole bunch of spin-offs and a bunch of other things that I got myself involved with. So
right.
Facebook has become kind of a thing.
So I have to ask you, back in 2015, what were the common things a lot of atheists thought were real but weren't?
So I had a lot of people who followed chiropractic, acupuncture. There was a lot of people who I would find that would believe in things like vitamin C curing the common cold. It was a myriad. It wasn't just one thing. It was, you'd just be surprised, you really believe that. Can I ask you why you believe that? So I've learned that just because someone is an atheist didn't necessarily make them a critical thinker.
Right.
So it's just, atheist, by definition is just someone who is not a believer in some kind of higher power. So nothing special to that, but to be a true skeptic, that takes it to a separate level. So that's why I just took it to that other spin, because I found plenty of Christians who identified as skeptics, and you talk to them and it's wow, okay, you do critically think, but why? There's the dissonance, and I also found the smarter the person is, the more they were able to rationalize their rather strange beliefs.
That's what I found too, is that the higher the IQ quotient, there's a positive correlation, right? The graph goes up this way. The smarter you are, the better your ability to just think of reasons why the Loch Ness monster is real.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I found out as well. So as I said, at that time I decided I'm just going to marry the two ideas, put them together, just see what would happen. And to my surprise, it just blew up.
That's great. That's fantastic. I have to ask you, did you get into any issues with either the skeptic community or with the atheist community? Because you're doing this, you're melding these two things together.
Skeptic community, not too much. I haven't, just because we just follow right in line. It's just we have that eight. It just seems like we're more hard line. It's so you have a nice dividing line right there. We don't tiptoe around religion. We will flat out just say bam. We're not even going to give any kind of credibility. Because a lot of sciences like to tiptoe around religion, and we just said, no, we're not taking that path. We have no issue throwing it right under the bus and letting it roll around in the tire.
Excellent.
So, and interestingly enough, though, we did have issues with some people in the atheist community.
Really?
Yeah, because they believe herbalism was a big one. That one we found a lot. There'd be people that believed in natural, what they would call natural medicines. And one of the, I don't even remember who the gentleman, I know he's a musician, but he made a comment. It was like, that essentially summed up is, what we call natural medicine that works? Medicine. So in another way, alternative medicine has been either shown not to work or proven not to work. I mean, excuse me, has not been shown to work or been proven not to work. Sorry.
Right.
And that was the thing. So we had a lot of people who self-identified as atheists, and then they'd start following us along. But then someone would be like, "Hey, wait a minute! I believe this, that, and the other thing." And it's like, "Well, what's your evidence that supports that?" And then you'd see the argument fall apart.
Right.
So,
and I imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, people respond instinctually in a very similar way, whether or not they're an atheist or a theist, when their arguments start falling apart. There seems to be kind of like this emotional response.
Yes. And you also have what's called the backfire effect. So essentially, the more you show someone that they're wrong, the more sometimes people will dig their heels in. So instead of just sitting there arguing with somebody and saying you're wrong, sometimes it's just better just like, well, you know what? Here is all this evidence right here. And I really highly encourage you to read up on this, because that was one of the things that I think helped distinguish us. It wasn't us just sitting there ragging on the subject and just sending out dank memes, making fun of things. It's like, no, here's us sharing very well vetted articles.
Yeah.
From highly regarded sources. And that's how, to be honest, AAPN started out rather dry in the way the material that we shared. Very heavy science stuff.
Yeah.
So we had kind of a very hardline inward following. And then as time went on, little quirky attitudes came along. And now we almost have this kind of appearance when we make comments. I don't know if have you ever followed Wendy's on Twitter?
Yeah, well, yes, Wendy's, the fast food chain restaurant. They're
known for savagely trolling and roasting, right? We started doing the same thing, and once we started doing the same thing, we noticed people really started following us, because we'd come in there and just drop, a bomb line on there.
Right, the dropping the mic moment there.
Yeah, we go in there, throw something out there, one of those duh kind of answers. then you notice we would see a whole bunch of people, it would blow up, it'd be like 1,000 comments on that one comment or something like that, or hundreds of likes, and then people would come back to our page and start liking us. So and it took on a life of its own.
Cool. Phil Lister in the chat. I believe I actually remember the moment that it dawned on me that vitamin C, you just pee out. Whatever, taking these multi-dose supplements of vitamin C do no good whatsoever because you're just going to pee them out.
Yes. So most of those vitamins that you take in those multivitamins, for the most part, they're not absorbed in the way they're supposed to be, or purported to be absorbed. And yes, you mainly do just urinate them out. Your body takes what it needs, and for the most part, your body gets what it needs from the food that we eat. We don't live in a society anymore where, hold on, let me turn my volume down on this here.
Sure.
We don't live in a society anymore where we're just sustaining on bread and hardtack. And
Are you a Civil War fan? Are you a reenactor?
No, I just know a little bit about history.
Right. Yeah. All right.
But anyways, so we are getting the proper nutrition. We have a very diverse diet, and in all honesty, when someone is not getting the nutrition that they should be, is very rare, and there's usually other reasons for it.
Right.
So
we talked about the atheist community and the skeptic community, but have you had any significant issues with the people who are primarily self-identify as humanists?
Not so much. As time went on, we started to kind of self-identify as being humanist in nature, and we started getting involved with other things, like with Mr. Bumbuado Roberts, who runs the Kinnetsy Humanist Center in Africa, and we kind of started working with him. We started organizing fundraisers because we saw what he was doing was absolutely fantastic in Africa. I think he's got 3 schools out there.
Yeah.
And those schools we saw were doing fantastic work. They weren't trying to indoctrinate these kids like the Catholic Church does out there. They were trying to teach them actual science, life skills, and a real education. And that is kind of rare out there in Africa. The religious schools get out there and then they go vomit into these poor kids' heads. And that's why you see religious fanaticism is so high out there, because the church really got its talons in there.
Yeah.
And so these 3 schools, we saw what they were doing. And so we started really heavily endorsing them and allowing them to effectively use our platform to put, show what they are doing. And so it helps gather funds, and you'd be amazed how much they could buy out there with rather little in our currency.
Right. I imagine you hear every once in a while, what's the problem with letting people believe what they want to believe? What's the danger in that?
Harm. Wasted money, wasted time, wasted resources. When you have people taking mega doses of vitamins, certain types of high dose vitamins can lead to severe health side effects. There are so many times where I'll see a picture of someone. Go do this for yourself, right? Go online, look up images of acupuncture, and you tell me how many of those images show a person putting a needle inside someone's skin and they're not even wearing gloves.
Oh, hey. Yeah.
I don't know of any healthcare practitioner or otherwise, anyone who's legitimate in the health field, that will put a needle into skin without wearing gloves and sanitizing the surface they're putting it on.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Of course, I've never gotten any acupuncture treatment either.
Yeah.
So acupuncture, complete placebo effect?
Complete placebo effect, according to what the evidence has to show.
Right. When I was growing up, I mentioned the Loch Ness Monster earlier. When I was a kid, loved the idea of a large creature living in the Highlands of Scotland. Read up a whole bunch of non-skeptical kind of books on the monster, because there's a whole cottage industry around pseudoscience.
Yeah. I did the same thing as a kid with Bigfoot.
Oh, right. So Bigfoot was your pet? Was your pet?
Yeah, Bigfoot when I was a kid was my boogeyman in the woods. And as I got older and started to, I just really started to sit down and think about it. And, I was never really a true believer. I was more I just loved the idea of it. And because I didn't know either way, it was one of those, everyone was talking about, oh, we think we saw something. And as a kid, you love seeing all these stories because, they make good stories.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them have really good stories, and that's the thing about these. They're all stories, but there's no any hard evidence. And that was something even as a kid I remember going, it's like, well, you have all these people looking for it, and all these drunk rednecks going into the woods shooting things, and not one time has ever one of these things been shot. So what's the deal, man?
Right.
So yeah, I started looking into it. Started realizing how weak the information involved with it, and how many times these things were shown to be hoax.
Yeah.
And then started listening to what actual biologists had to say. Talking about, in order for a species to be able to propagate, you need to have a sizable breeding population, otherwise it will go extinct rather quickly. And when they're saying, the amount of Bigfoot that would have to exist to be able to survive, I mean, it would be pretty substantial. And being where they live is still rather populated. These suckers would be, they'd be seen quite often still.
Sure.
I mean, not maybe quite often like you, but I mean, even if they were something like elusive, like a lynx or a bobcat, we still know they're there. Every so often, you'd see them, and you'd have physical evidence. You'd find their bones and their feces and other things. The best you're getting from these Bigfoot people is like, I got a plaster cast and a good story.
Right. That may or may not involve alcohol.
or the psilocybin mushrooms that we have that grow out here so much.
Right. So how old were you when you came to the conclusion that Bigfoot is not real?
I want to say around the age of 13, it really kind of dawned on me. It was also kind of because I remember also growing up, atheism was also the same kind of thing. Now, granted, I grew up in an atheist secular family, but I didn't, as a kid, you don't put much thought into it, and everyone has their own opinions. And being where I grew up, I think was a perfect environment to kind of see religion for what it was. And I don't exaggerate this at all. To the neighbors to the left of me, in my childhood home, we had people who were Baptists. And the people to the right, we had people who were Jewish, like real, like Israeli Jewish.
Right.
Up and across the way in the cul-de-sac, there was a Buddhist family, and then to the left of that, a Muslim family.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it really was. It was that. So it was awesome. And as a kid, I started seeing it as, this is a cult. I almost saw it more like a cultural identity. I didn't even see that, because my parents really did shelter me from religion and religious indoctrination. And so I was able to see it as people trying to make sense of the world through their cultural lens.
Right.
So,
well, are your parents in the sciences?
My mom and my mom is a big. So this is how I am the I guess the logical conclusion of the two of them. My mom, total science nerd, worked in the health industry her entire life. My dad, malignant, he is just a skeptic
Mm.
The guy's gonna automatically first assume you're full of shit until otherwise. You know.
That's great.
Yeah, he doesn't believe anything until he has evidence to believe anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. You mentioned that your views on the Facebook page, went, straight up, or not straight up, but you got a lot more popular when you kind of hacked the algorithm in a sense. Does Facebook algorithm, does the YouTube algorithm, does that reinforce typically bad behavior or bad thinking?
It just reinforces whatever is trending. That's why they use the phrase trending. So whether it be good or bad, if something's trending, just like how QAnon was trending for a while.
Yeah.
Finally, Facebook yesterday decided to do something about it. But the thing is, when something's trending, their algorithm is just going to, if you show an interest in it, it's just going to keep reinforcing those interests.
Yeah.
If you ever want to have an interesting experiment, just to see it for yourself, create a unique individual profile on YouTube and start just running things like Fox News and Breitbart, anything that's very right wing. Make sure you're looking at things like guns and Second Amendment and all and you'll see that Facebook will then YouTube will then continue to advertise that style of stuff. So it brings you into this little feedback loop.
Yeah.
At no point is it going to show the Young Turks or Democracy Now or other or NPR even, which is rather neutral. Instead, you're going to see things like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson segments and speeches from Reagan and a lot of Donald Trump stuff.
Yeah, right.
So, and so that's how the algorithm works, and it traps people into this very monocentric view, where they think that because I'm seeing it, that must be what it is.
Right. So what do we do about that? How do we help, fight the algorithm in a sense?
Well, that's you are really truly fighting against the algorithm, because the algorithm is designed to keep people watching, so that way they could watch more commercials.
Right.
That's really the whole end of the goal. The algorithm is designed to keep you watching it, so they could hit you with more of their advertising, because that's where they make their money, is their advertising. So, in all honesty, a lot of these people, their beliefs are emotional and not empirical. So the best thing you could really do, in my experience, I mean, even though every so often I'll just blow. Let me first finish this thought.
Yeah.
So the best way you could do this is effectively lead them to water and see if you could hopefully get them to drink. Show them the information, show them why this may be fabricated, and let them read it for themselves, and if they're being genuinely honest with themselves, they'll take it in. But some people, their minds are made up, and they're essentially true believers of whatever it is. It doesn't matter the information you show, but it's a slow chiseling effect. You have to just hit it one little pebble off at a time. Knock this pebble off, knock that pebble off. Show where this was wrong, show where that was wrong. So you're not going to build Rome in a day. It's really the reality. And the problem is they're gonna self-perpetuate. As you get rid of, as you show one thing is wrong, they're gonna scoop up another thing, and that's one of the reasons why some of these pundits are so dangerous. Is they satisfy these people's limbic desire to be engaged in that kind of way without any logical sense.
Right. I imagine if you hold on to these conspiracy theories or pseudoscience, it makes you feel special in some way, doesn't it?
It does bring community. So with things like conspiracy theories, a lot of times these people who believe in these really outlandish conspiracy theories, they're already kind of societal outcasts as it is.
Yeah.
And conspiracy theories also, in a way, simplify complex answers. So if you think about it this way, if you looked at two ways to say, let's bring up 9/11 because that's an easy one, right? So you could have the real answer, which is kind of complicated when you look at it, how it all came to effect, how everything happened, which took a lot of planning and a lot of research on our behalf to figure out how the heck this all went down, right?
Yeah.
And you have to also understand the history of Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and why things materialized in the way they do, the chain of events. So the real explanation takes a lot of work. Or I could do a simple answer. It was Uncle Sam in a controlled demolition. That's the only way it can make sense. And then you're like, yeah, see how the building came straight down? It's like, we're not going to talk about, the structural makeup of the building. We're not going to talk about how the way it fell and the physics. No, it's obviously a controlled demolition. It fell straight down.
Yes.
It's a simple answer. And that's what those conspiracy theorists use is simple answers to try to make things make sense to them. Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I don't have coronavirus, I promise.
That,
But anyways, and so in those simplified answers and in their extreme outsider views, social media has provided these people community.
yeah.
And so these people who were once very isolated by themselves in these beliefs, who flat earthers are no different. All these other you just pick your number.
Yeah.
These people are all very isolated in their beliefs, and because of Facebook, these people are able to find each other, and they're able to perpetuate. They're able to communicate these beliefs and pile the stack of manure higher. And that's how that works. So when it comes down to conspiracy theories, it's a simplified answer, but it's also one that provides these people community in an otherwise situation where they'd be those outcasts. And if you put these people 40 years ago, where it was your crazy uncle that nobody really talks to, but now your crazy uncle has people to talk to.
A lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people from all around the world, and that reinforces their idea that they are right.
Oh yeah. I was just looking at your Facebook page right now, with the Atheists Against Pseudoscientific Nonsense, and I swear to my fictitious God, Daniel, if I didn't know that you weren't a satirical site, I would say this just smacks of satire. What I'm looking at right now is the join us for the celebration of life and freedom. Wait for it. Hugs Over Masks Nation. Every Sunday from 12 to 4 in Victoria Park, London, Ontario.
Yeah, we will all, in the group itself, we will share some of the BS that we find. So if you look on the main page, we're typically, we're sharing memes, we're sharing science information and everything. In the group, people tend to share like, hey, everybody, look at that over here. Hey, check this crap out. You wouldn't believe what we've come here and look at this. Somebody look at this.
And it says because there's more, of course, to this. It says kids activities, potluck, music, and it's, of course, they just want to let you know again, it's a mask-free zone and hugs encouraged. How can you be against hugs, Daniel?
Yeah, and what was the comment that I put on top?
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the next super spreader event. like I said, if I didn't know that this was a real site doing real information, I would think it's a satirical piece right there.
Right.
It's so crazy.
Sometimes some of the things we find is you have to be in absolute shock and awe to realize that this is a real thing. You'll find things that are that people are legitimately, absolutely serious about, and you just cannot believe it. I remember bringing this up to Hemet Meta one time. We had and it was actually not too far from where I live, about a couple hundred miles away east from where I live. There was a convention held at this hotel for this guy who sells what's called MMS, his Miracle Mineral Solution. Effectively, what it is industrialized bleach. I'm not even joking. This stuff is industrial bleach. And the way this quack gets away with this crap is he effectively says, this stuff will cure. It's your old school. I'm on top of a soapbox. This thing will cure everything, from gout to tuberculosis, and this guy was sharing videos of him going to Africa and giving children this stuff and, drinking bleach. And he would hide behind the guise of it being a church, organization. And so it's really bad. And so I remember pointing this out, and it's like, you got to really see this crap to believe, just to see, like, this stuff is really out there. I mean, you think it'd be satire, but it's not.
Yeah. Phil Lister in the chat says, often the conspiracy theories contradict.
Yes. A lot of times you will find dissonance in conspiracy theories where you'll find that the two are non-reconcilable, or they will also flat out conflict with one another. And it's funny if you ever are able to catch a conspiracy theorist with a conflicting view, their minds will melt. It's like you could watch them implode upon themselves. Once he's like, well, I see you believe that, but that over there would debunk that over there. So where's the middle space? So either A, they will, you'll see them try to go into some mental jujitsu of some kind.
Right.
And the mental acrobatics are just absolutely fantastic, watching them try to reconcile the two. Or then you'll see them just blow up. Screw you! You just don't. You're not working. It's like, oh, okay. The fact that you're cussing me out instead of engaging in rational dialogue shows you got nothing. You got nothing to show for it. The moment you started cussing me out and just saying, "Oh, screw you," and this, that, and the other thing, and my mom's fat or whatever, it shows me that you have nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I was chatting on Chris's show, the Daily Atheist Morning Show, the other day, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to come up with this phrase, but a lot of these groups seem to have this kind of incentivized psychosis, this kind of incentivized thought disorder, where people you're just given positive reinforcement for thinking poorly.
Yeah, it's a feedback loop. That's really what it is. It's a feedback loop. These people will pile upon themselves. The bull crap piles higher and higher and higher and higher, and every person offers their shovelful.
Right. Because I imagine it's like, I think that most of us have been through these horrible meetings at work where people feel like they have to say something just because they have to say something to keep themselves in a job, to keep their positions intact.
Paycheck justification. Yeah,
exactly. So I imagine similar to that in these kind of groups where if you don't say something crazy, then your position within the group is jeopardized.
Not necessarily. There's plenty of people who are passive watch. They passively engage. It's the thing is, you look at it and you'll have somebody come up with a wild idea, and those people will feed on that wild idea.
Right.
And a lot of it is not, and you never hear it, like, oh, I heard from this. It's, I bet this, that, and the other thing. And then you see them speculating, and they will feed and they'll feed off that speculation, and that speculation then becomes some kind of inherent truth. It's not that somebody comes up with this wild idea that says, "Hey, the CIA is putting microchips in our flu shots." No, it's not a matter of that. It's, they have all these small microchips these days, and they always tell us that we have to get our flu shots these days. I bet they're putting I wouldn't be surprised if they start putting microchips in our flu shots, to do this, that, and then they speculate to do this, that, and the other thing, and that eventually turns into what I bet and into they are.
It sounds like a Donald Trump speech, because he likes to say, some people say, some people think. And it then throws out this horrible idea. It gets out into the zeitgeist and it takes hold.
That's exactly how that works too. And you will see these people who effectively worship this man's feet run, and see it as an absolute truth. Anali, go outside. Go outside. Sorry, my dog's begging for attention.
Sure.
But yeah, that and Trump knows what he's doing. He knows what he is doing. He is priming these people's beliefs. Hold on, I gotta go close my door.
Sure. We're doing a dog/door intervention right now. I do not have any dogs at this point in time, so I do not have to do such kind of interventions. I hope everyone's doing well in the chat. Blazing Wizard Pope, how you doing? Hope all things are well. Your cooking dinner got lost in steam and scents. Good for you. Worst things to get lost in.
Sorry.
That's okay, man. This is the beauty of doing a live show, right?
Right. Yeah, no, the dogs are just I got two smart, intelligent breed dogs, and for some reason they're perfectly fine if I'm not doing anything and just sitting on the couch minding my own business. But the moment I'm engaged in something, they're like toddlers. they need my undivided attention, and they're going to cause a scene.
Right.
And I blame myself for forgetting to close the door to my office.
What can the everyday person do? Let's say if I'm new to skepticism, what's the if you were going to just give me just like one thing that I could do if I'm new to skepticism to be a better skeptic, what would that be?
Check your sources. Fact check. Yeah, and if you could always remind yourself of the Carl Sagan line, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. If it sounds too good to be true, chances are it may be. And use Occam's razor, whatever the simplest answer, the simplest answer tends to be the truest answer. But but unfortunately, if you take that to its logical extreme, that's where conspiracy theorists will come into play too. So you got to check your facts. Always check your facts. You hear something, you think, huh? Well, I wonder, what are the facts about this? And sometimes you'll find there are no facts about this, or what facts that there are about that subject, there are few and far and in between, and really those facts can be distorted.
Yeah,
you'll see people cherry picking a narrative. So.
What I find dangerous, one of the many things I find dangerous about our education system here in the States, is that from what I've seen, I have two kids, one is out of high school, one is a sophomore, that they don't really discuss a whole lot about the differences between an opinion piece that you'll read and just a news piece.
Yes. And that's where people like Tucker Carlson really get away with stuff like that. When there was the defamation lawsuit with Tucker Carlson, Fox News had to admit that the guy was an opinion host. But the way he presents himself is a political pundit that is talking truth.
Right.
As he vomits disinformation and dog whistles. But you have to really just, I really, that is a good point. That really is a good point. And a lot of people don't check into things. I mean, you whenever I hear op-ed, this is someone's opinion. You can't just take it for face. You can't take it at face value as being a fact. You got to realize, okay, if it's an opinion, that means it's an opinion, and therefore it is subject to be challenged.
Indeed. And, you raise a great point, is that we have to be careful that just because someone within our own tribe, whether it's an atheist, humanist, or skeptic tribe, says something, it doesn't mean it's true.
Exactly. And that is the danger you fall into, because it is so easy to use our limbic system to just, you hear it, it sounds great. And because we would emotionally agree with it, we're going to accept it as true. And instead of looking into it and being like, oh, well, it wasn't true. Oh, well, shit. And watch this. So for what it's worth, as funny as it would be and amazing as it would be for actual videotapes to emerge of Donald Trump getting golden showers in Russia, I had to look into it and be like, well, the information on that is scant.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there was a report from a Steele dossier, but you also look at, okay, well, the Democrats did pay for it. All right, well, a lot of the information is anecdotal. There's no, and so until hard evidence arrives, you have to take it for what it is, and it's anecdotal. And the plural of anecdote is anecdotes and not proof.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just because you have a bunch of information that's anecdotal, it suddenly doesn't cross this magical line and become a peer-reviewed study.
And then we come full circle, Bigfoot. A lot of, or Loch Ness Monster. You got a lot of people out there saying, I saw this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, yeah, I heard a lot of people saw this, that, and the other thing. But does anybody have a body or a turd or something? Anything? No?
I'm asking for a turd, man. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, just something. Give me something physical that we could actually test, that we could get some DNA. No, you just got stories and some some plaster molds that, and you look at it, it's like, well, anybody, I could make that at home.
Right. So the Blazing Wizard Pope in the chat says, I can recommend The Guardian's The Dark Side of Homeschooling. That sounds like a nice art. I imagine that's an article from The Guardian magazine. So I'll take a gander at that. Homeschooling, dude. That must be like a beehive of buzzing nuttiness.
Yeah, and and this is a difficult thing. In the United States, kids that are homeschooled for some reason do seem to test better, and that is something that it is used by those people as a thing to point at, that these homeschooled kids are doing are overall testing better. The problem is, the parents aren't necessarily teachers, and the parents could also be indoctrinating them into some other crazy beliefs. Mm-hmm. So the parent may be even helping them. I honestly, I don't know. This is and that's purely speculative.
Yeah.
I don't have anything on that, and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist in that. I don't want to be my own worst enemy in that. But you'll have let's just say it's evolutionary. It's the evolution part of the biology textbook. They're answering the right question. They're answering the questions correctly, but the parents may be telling them that, well, this is what the book answer says, but the real answer is God did it.
Right.
Because that's the simple answer. God did it. Don't look into it much.
I'm not acquainted with studies that show or point to homeschoolers being better educated. I imagine that those studies adjusted for class, for an example. I mean, like if
you Google these things, homeschool versus kids in regular school system, for some reason it does show that those homeschool kids, as of current, are scoring higher overall average than kids at home. I mean, the kids in regular traditional schools. But as I said, you run into a problem where that's going to fluctuate
Right.
the education level of a parent. Nothing worries me more than a parent homeschooling their kid that didn't pass high school.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's just like, well, how the heck do you expect to, teach your kid high school stuff when you didn't graduate high school yourself?
Yeah. Very good point. Very good point.
But these people are, I'm the parent, therefore, I know all. I'm the kid's parent. It's like, oh, sure you do. That's why you take them to the doctor, right?
I always point out to fellow parents and people who say that I'm the parent and that's why blah blah blah. It's like, you don't own your children. You are a steward for their rights. You are a steward for them up until they get to an age that they can exercise their own rights. 18 years old, whatever. And you do not own them like you own a can of soup, for an example. You do not have dictatorial powers over that child.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and that's what a lot of these parents seem to believe, have this idea of, my kid, I do what I want. And it's like,
how does that sound?
It sounds very ignorant and very disempowering to the child.
Oh yeah.
It makes the child seem as if it's livestock.
It really does. And as a parent, I have to say I want my children to be resilient. And when you're treating your kids like livestock, it's difficult. I think, from what it seems to me, it's difficult to create a resilient child if they're totally dependent on you for judgment.
Yeah, because I mean, I have a kid, and his biological mother, who lives in a different state, is a theist.
Yeah,
and she tends to be prone to pick up right-wing views on occasion here and there.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say all right-wing views are categorically wrong.
Right.
That's also intellectually disingenuous, or it's just dishonest to do that.
Yeah.
The world is a three-dimensional place, and two-dimensional views never work. So I mean, there's complicated answers to everything. So I mean, you have to be careful when it comes to but anyways, but she's also a theist and all these other things. And so when my son's over here with me at, whenever during the slots that I have him, whenever he's not in school, I have him. I'm teaching him how to think critically.
Yeah.
I'm not telling him that, hey, this is completely BS. Don't believe that. I told you not to believe that. Or don't do that. I told you not to do that. It's, hey, Theo, look, this is why. This is, this way. And here's the information.
Yeah.
So you can see it for yourself. So you don't just have to take my word for it. Look at it. And let's think about this for a second. It's those kinds of things. And it's like, well, I remember someone told him there's angels in the clouds. And, when he was on an airplane, I was like, so did you see any angels in the clouds? He's like, no. It's like, so what did the clouds look like? Fog. It's like, so you really think, so does it look like something could be sitting on them? Like, no. It's like, all right then.
Job well done.
Yeah.
So we're heading down to towards the end of our hour, and I was wondering if there was a question you wanted me to ask you that I didn't get around to. Not talking about plugs or where people can find you online, but if there was a topic you really felt was important that we didn't touch on.
Oh goodness. I'm pretty sure if you asked me later on in the day, I would be able to pop up something real fast.
Right.
But, it's still 8:49 in the morning for me, and I got up at probably 7:30. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. People wake up differently. I wake up relatively fresh, but that's more like maybe a superpower or an irritating power. I think my girlfriend would say.
Right.
It's just an irritating power.
Yeah, I got that kind of diesel engine kind of brain where it just, the longer it's running, the better it seems to run.
Oh, good. That's good for you, man.
But when I wake up, that motor's cold, and it's not running very hot yet, and that compression ratio is just not working too well. I mean, don't ask me to accelerate too quick. Because I'm just going to be like, no, not right now. Hold on, coffee.
So let me ask you before we start winding it up. Have you ever been to any of the big skeptic? Have you ever been to like the Amazing Meeting, for example, TAM, or any of the atheist conferences?
No, not. I've been to the American Atheist convention before in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to more, but as it stands, I really am kind of more of an upstart in this, because prior to all this, I had the time that I served in the military and the other things that I was engaged with, and then also being in college. For the longest time, I mean, being in college essentially means intentionally being broke. There's no way to say it's paying your dues to society, essentially. So the entire time I first started out in college, I mean, crap, I didn't have a dime. So while I was in the Navy, I kept my atheist and my skeptic side of my to myself, and I kept rather low key because I didn't want to make ripples in the pond.
Right.
And especially since the military tends to be somewhat ostracizing to those people who are disbelievers and whatnot. Even though you'll find a lot of the general population in the military, you'd be surprised, is rather secular and centrist, or even Democrat or left wing even.
Interesting.
But it seems like there is enough of these people in positions of authority that if you're outed as an atheist, these tribalistic conservative people in the military will make sure to tamp down those individuals and make your life a living hell.
That's sad.
It is, and that was one of the things that I remember. I kept my atheism to myself then. I kept, I remember even when I first started out in the military, there was a senior enlisted individual that told me that if he ever found out that I was some godless person, that he would make sure that he used his authority to get rid of me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I was new at the time. I didn't know any better.
Oh, right.
So I mean, if you caught me towards the end of my time in the military, if someone told me that, I'm like, I would have immediately brought it up and and went after the guy for it.
Yeah.
But when you're 18 years old, you don't know anything.
Exactly.
So it kind of scares you in submission. So it wasn't until towards the the end of my time in the Navy that I started saying, "Hey, wait a minute. You know what?"
Yeah. Especially if you're going to be out soon.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it more was. That, and also I would say I was a little more emboldened when I saw the whole Coach Kennedy thing up here in Washington State, where it was the that coach that was praying on the field.
Yeah.
And now, granted, the state did exactly what they were supposed to do, which was awesome. But obviously, you had the Patriot Prayer Group get involved, and they're bringing up his constitutional rights. It's like, no, this guy was intentionally doing it, to cause a scene.
Yeah.
They told him that he could passively pray on the side, but the thing is, he was peer pressuring these kids to pray with him on the field and in an open demonstration. He was making it a big thing.
Yeah.
And when I was out there, I saw people from the Satanic Temple and a whole bunch of these people from these other sciences or these other skepticism and anti-theist organizations and whatnot, freedom of religion and all these. And I was there kind of initially as a passive observer because I wanted to see this. It's like, are there really as many people like this as it is? And seeing all these people ragging on this guy in person, protesting, it made me kind of go like, hey, I'm not so alone in this as I thought. And then so I started, looking around in the military and realizing, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot more people like that than I thought there were.
Sure.
We're just keeping it to ourselves. Because religion and right-wing populist views are very prominent in the military. Sure. But when you look at the individuals themselves who make up the military, you realize is in this loud, echo chamber, a lot of people don't agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the thing is that because, you know, they're playing whack-a-mole with everybody, you know, stay down, stay down, stay down.
Sure.
You
Well,
know,
they want to keep you silent.
yes. And that's really what it is. And, you know, the Gideon's Bible gets on base all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and they pass it around all the time, but you never really see any like secular material.
Right.
You know, like for instance, here's a great example. When you have any, you know, anything that is emotionally causing conflict with you, causing problems, they don't tell you to go see a shrink. They tell you to see the chaplain.
That's sad.
If you have a problem, you see a chaplain. You don't see professional care. You don't see, you know, they don't send you to go talk to a psychologist, to go help deal with these problems, or a therapist. They send you to a freaking chaplain, and that chaplain is going to do everything in their power to proselytize.
No, sure. Because that's what they love to do when you're weak, when you're in a weak position.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, for myself, for instance, I remember when my marriage was dissolving, you know, my rather short marriage was dissolving, and the emotional pain when it came to me finding out about my ex-wife's infidelity and all these horrible things that she was doing while I was on deployment. It hurt. It stung, because at that time I still loved her because I was newlywed.
Sure.
So to find out that, you know, my new wife of mine that I just had a kid with is doing all these things, it stung really bad. And so I was told that I had to see a chaplain. It was a direct order that literally came all the way down from the commanding officer. So I had to find a chaplain as an atheist.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking over at all these people, and I said, so I finally asked, like, okay, so who are the people that I have available to me?
Yeah.
And I remember I found a guy who was a Jewish chaplain. And I figured, you know what? I see all these other ones are Christian. I'm going to just go with the Jewish guy. I'm going to go out there and just see what this guy has, you know, see if I could go, because I don't want to hear about all this stuff. And so I sat down and I told him straight up, and at least the guy had a background in psychology.
That's good.
Which was nice. So everyone on a lot of people at my command thought I was Jewish because I was not seeing a chaplain. I was seeing a rabbi.
Sure.
You know, so Dan's a Jew, apparently. It's like, no. It's just I didn't want to see a Christian chaplain just because I knew exactly what I'd hear from him.
Yes.
You know, the rabbi never asked me to pray.
That's
but
good.
Any time that I came across a Christian one, they first wanted to sit down and pray with me, and I'm just sitting here looking at it like, oh, please. Like, fine, I'll cross my head. I don't know what I'm doing here, but okay. So yeah, that just goes into the entire culture of how the military just browbeat the hell out of people.
I am sorry that you had to deal with that, man. That sounds like a rough time when you were having a rough time at that.
It was. You know, it was a 1-2 punch, but I mean, it is what it is. Yep. Daniel Gafilka Fisk Bennett. Yep.
There you go. That's where you go. So I guess we're up to our hour. Daniel, thanks for coming on the show today. I appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. I learned a bunch of stuff, and I heard a couple of great stories too.
It was nice to be here.
So where can people find you online, sir?
So you can find me at www.thescientificatheist.com. You can find me on Facebook in Facebook land. Look up Atheists Against Pseudoscientific Nonsense. We're all over the place on Facebook. We have a lot of spin-off groups. Not hard to find at all. So it's just one of those kinds of things that if you type in Atheists Against, chances are the rest will pop right up in your feed.
Excellent.
It doesn't take much.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, man. Take care.
You too.
And thanks for everyone in the chat. Be strong, everyone.